The first time anyone saw her with a rifle, they laughed. Not because she was clumsy, not because she was afraid. They laughed because she didn't look like a warrior. She looked like a supply clerk, hands soft from paperwork, not from gunpowder. And then the gunfire started. The desert air went from hot to heavy in a heartbeat. Sand rose in angry clouds, whipping around boots and gear like a warning. Men shouted orders that barely reached one another, swallowed by the chaos. In the distance, a group of insurgents had cut them off, and their position was collapsing fast. Commanding voice rang out, sharp as a blade. "Any sharpshooters here?" Before anyone could answer, the silence returned. Not the calm kind.
God.
The kind that happens right before something breaks. And then the quiet supply girl stepped forward. "Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're re-watching from. I love knowing who's listening." She was known for her efficiency, not her bravery. She could inventory a crate in under 5 minutes, could fix a jammed radio faster than anyone else. But she wasn't supposed to be in the line of fire. She wasn't supposed to be the one people depended on when the world went dark. She looked at the rifle like it was a stranger. Her hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of what was happening. Her heart beat like a drum in a silent church. Around her, soldiers were pinned down. Few had already been hit. One man lay on the ground, his breath shallow, eyes wide in disbelief. The desert seemed to close in, as if it wanted to swallow them all. She could have run. She could have stayed behind the line where she belonged. But something inside her snapped, not into anger, but into purpose. She lifted the rifle. The first thing she did was breathe, slowly, deeply, as if she was reminding her body that it still belonged to her. Then she adjusted the scope, and her eyes narrowed, not in arrogance, but in determination. A sniper's gaze calm, unflinching. The men around her didn't believe it at first. Some even scoffed. You're not a shooter?" They didn't know the truth. They didn't know what she'd kept hidden behind her quiet voice. She'd grown up in a place where survival wasn't taught in classrooms. She'd learned it in silence. She'd learned it by watching her father aim, by watching her mother protect their home. She'd learned that sometimes the person who looks least dangerous is the one who refuses to be defeated. The insurgents moved again, like a tide of shadow and rage. The supply girl's finger found the trigger. Her first shot rang out like a crack of lightning. It hit its mark, clean and true. One enemy fell, and the desert seemed to inhale. Then another. Then another. The squad watched in stunned silence as she continued, each shot precise, each movement steady. The rifle didn't feel like a weapon in her hands. It felt like an extension of her will. Her teammates began to move, slowly at first, then with more confidence. They started to coordinate. They started to trust her aim. They started to believe. The commander, who had been shouting orders only moments before, suddenly stopped. He watched her like he was watching a miracle. Then he realized the truth. She wasn't just a supply girl. She was a guardian. She was the quiet one who never asked for attention, but had always been watching, always learning, always waiting for the moment she could step up and do what needed to be done. When the last enemy fell, the desert went quiet again. Not the kind of silence that means safety. The kind of silence that means a storm has passed, and the world is still shaking. Her hands shook now, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from relief, from the knowledge that she had just saved lives she didn't even know were hers. Her squad gathered around her, faces filled with something like awe. A few whispered apologies. A few didn't know what to say. The commander walked over. His boots crushed the sand with heavy certainty. He looked at her, and for the first time, he looked at her like a person, not a role. He didn't praise her loudly. He didn't call her a hero in front of everyone. But the respect in his eyes was louder than any speech. He nodded once, like a soldier acknowledging another soldier. And in that moment, the squad learned a truth they'd ignored for too long. Strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Because courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the person you least expect, standing alone with a rifle and choosing to fight anyway. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And as the dust settled, the desert wind carried her name into the silence soft, but unforgettable. If this story moved you, Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Whispered Words for more emotional mission stories. And tell me who was the quiet hero in your life. If you think you know someone, wait until the moment they decide to be brave.